So I think we're at a time when a lot of people, both young and old, no longer want to follow process. Like we no longer want to just go through things the way they should be. We all just want things done sort of like a microwave way. We want it quick, let me put it that way. We want it to be done now. We don't want to be patient anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to all new episodes of Daylight Lounge, and these are my guys.
Hi.
Hello. What's going on? People are looking at me like people have not had moments where you were impatient in life, and then you really just wanted to. Okay, but you were patiently waiting. Nice one. Okay, so but I mean, I feel like a lot of people, maybe with young people, it's even more prominent where we just want things to be done quicker. Right, we want to enter university today and tomorrow we want to just graduate. You're in 100 level and you're already tired. How did you get the admission in the first place? So another thing that also comes to mind is how, like fruits, how if you do not allow the fruits to ripen and then you pluck it out, you do not get as good quality as you would have if you leave it to ripen. So as human beings, we don't want ripe. Do you get what I mean? So we just want we want the results so quickly. Yeah. Is there anything really responsible for it, or
one word? I think experience. I think people in this generation will experience the older generation go through processes where things didn't really happen on time, and maybe because we suffered in some form or another, it has now made us like come into this place where we want to get things done faster. We want to get richer on time. We want to get better in time. For example, you want to settle down early. Because
but
people want to know.
Okay, so what I'm saying is it a bad thing to want to get things done quickly? I mean, sometimes it's a waste of time.
Not every time.
Quickly is fine.
So not every time.
It's when you rush. So
rush.
Wanting to do things on time, which I think is doable. On time means you're making sure that if there's no reason why you should be waiting, you are doing things as fast as you can. However, there are some times when you can't rush it. It's like when you're loading something on your computer. You don't turn off your computer during this process, but you have to wait for it to update, and you're there.
And there's nothing
you can do because you need to update it. There's that, right? Yeah, you would like for it to be fast, and you hope that your internet, if you can have faster internet, good. But you have to wait, and it has to finish. So I think fast, quick, that can be good. It has its things. It made us do everything instant, everything fast, but there's still space for that process. And if you skip it, you wouldn't get the benefits of waiting and going through your process.
So I think in terms of process, it's actually nice to enjoy. So I'll say two things. It's nice to enjoy the process because when you finally get to where you want to get to, it's like, I'm there. And then what next? And then you're just like, I remember when, it's so funny when, and then it's like, you're laughing about it now and you're just remembering like good old days when I was trying to maybe start something and just didn't work out and I went here and there and there. But then you didn't even allow yourself enjoy that process.
So
that's why you always,
on
on like the end goal.
Which is one moment in time. Like, the end goal is just that moment. It's like you want to get 100 on a test. When you get 100 on a test, that's just the time. But the time when you are preparing for tests, when you go with your friends when you're doing the class, when you're doing your research, those are the moments that are actually the long moments. And what you're saying is, don't live for the end.
Exactly. Live just because you can't get the process back.
So I love how the book of James puts it. It says, let faith work patience in you, and let patience have its complete work. And I realized that the experience that you actually get in the process is what builds you for that final goal. And so when you don't have the experience, it's like you're setting up yourself for a half-baked life, which is not really good when it comes to like your potential, harnessing your potential. So I think that we have to experience some things.
I want to highlight something Toby said. So there's this guy in the Bible. I like to describe him as this guy, Joseph, right? I think Joseph is one of those people who went through process and he could see that there's a reason he went through everything he went through until he gets to the final destination. I mean, it's really unexplainable how your own brothers would be the one to sell you out, but they had to, just because it was part of the process that he had to go through to get to to even went to the prison and then become the deputy to Pharaoh. Do you get what I mean? So the end goal, his arrival, we'll talk about arrival shortly. So for him, his blow, right, is him becoming the assistant to Pharaoh. Right, but something had to bring him to that point. And that was, it just happened that it was his brothers. So maybe sometimes we shouldn't be pissed when people.
I mean, they didn't have to sell him. He could have gone there by himself. So it doesn't have to be through selling him. They had to sell him.
Yeah.
Because what makes you feel like he would have just gone there?
So you're saying when sometimes when you do some things to people, you're helping their future.
Think about it. Somebody had to deny Jesus.
Yeah. I think that's for another day. But I want to talk about faith and the place of faith, because one thing Joseph had and one thing you were talking about in this book is faith in the middle. Like, there's a Joel Austin sermon I listened to and it stuck with me like for many years. You have faith when you're starting something. You always have faith in the beginning. Like, yes, this thing is gonna be great. And at the end, when you get it, your face is just like, yes, I knew it. But in the middle, in the time when you are being sold, when you are a slave, when you are Potiphar's servant, when you're in the prison, that's where it's hard to have the faith. And that's why sometimes we want to rush process, because we are scared that we may not get it. So because you're afraid, it makes you start to panic, it makes you start to rush, it makes you start to do things. You now even sometimes leave the will of God and live where God has placed you to see, okay, maybe I can try my own way. I know, God is in this thing and I really believe this, but what if it doesn't work out? So faith, there's also a place of faith in your process, and just knowing that if you go through the process, it will build you.
I think another example is David.
Right.
I mean, David also had to go through a process. Imagine being anointed king. And then you still have to serve under the king.
Just waiting for your own moment.
And still be haunted by that same king. It's just sad.
Well, you mentioned something about people being afraid because of the process. Like they're afraid
losing
of
faith.
So it's like Samson, for example. I feel like he had a bit of a process and he somewhat maybe failed that process.
He didn't live through
lost
it.
his
right? Yeah. He actually
Lost
kind
focus.
of
Lost focus.
So what would we describe this process as? Like what was it?
Well, I mean, so I feel like part of the process was Delilah was part of his process.
Yeah.
You know, or you don't feel like he was part of it. I feel like
So,
Like
I get
him
what
being
you're
able to
saying.
resist her, or him.
Yeah, I feel like it was part of his process. And okay, so what if he didn't succumb to her and then to the whole cutting of his head thing? What if,
I mean,
like,
sorry to cut you, but just to add to what she's saying, imagine if Joseph if he had fallen when he was being tempted by.
exactly?
Yeah, what if he didn't
So
reject?
that's the same thing here.
So that's building you,
True.
building your character, building your. So all those, and there's this thing where we see, is it a trap or a test? It's only a trap if the person is trying to, if it's malicious. It's a test if at the end of at the other side you're better for it and you're moving forward. So some of these things, those obstacles that we have in our process, if we don't pass those tests, when we get to where we're going, it's going to be really bad. There was a time I went for this program, Kemi Adetiba was there, and she was talking about her first ever recording. She lost the recording, like the hard disk she had it fried.
Oh wow!
And she had to go to America and find a way to recover it. It was really tough, but she got it back and she was happy. That had to happen to her then, so that now she knows she has like 5 backups. She's never going to ever not have a backup again. And I'm saying, like, these are, so your process is how you learn. That's how you are ready for where you're going.
To even add to what you just said now, it's like building strength for the future.
Yeah.
So like different things happen now, but it's not like you don't even need it for now. You need it for like where you're headed. And that's why you think like 5 years back, you were at a particular position, and then you're actually thinking of how you were 5 years ago. You can't really compare it to how you are now, but it's because of that process that you went through like 5 years ago that helped you to like build the strength to actually face new challenges. Like
I have
today.
a question though.
Right.
So talking about strength, like how do people? So I understand that faith. You need to have faith while going through the process, but honestly, you're going through it and it's tough. Like, how would you cope? Let's say you want to advise someone. How would you cope? How would they go through it?
Okay, so let me make an attempt. An attempted attempt. So I think it's
having it in mind that faith doesn't take away the pain.
Doesn't take away pain.
Yes. So I would say, wow, it's what you knew when you started in the first place, the conviction you had when you started, and the joy of you being on the other end of it. For example, say I'm a musician and I want to win the Grammy. The reason I go for rehearsal every day is the thought of winning the Grammy. Do you get what I mean? So that's what keeps you going. Even when times are hard, when I don't have transport fare to go to rehearsals, when I feel like, man, I can't do this thing anymore. The moment I think about winning a Grammy Awards, like, okay, fine, it's all for the Grammys.
You know, this reminds me of a scripture. I don't remember where exactly, that says, Jesus, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross.
Exactly. So it was there's a goal at the end, and that's the reason I'm doing all of this. It's, of course, like you said, process is never fun.
It's painful.
It's just like a pregnant woman. I mean, you're pregnant for like 9 months.
Exactly.
You're heavy, but then you know that you're going to give birth to a child.
The joy of motherhood is
By the time you give birth to the child,
not
you're like,
pregnancy
oh my
period.
God, great. Well, I heard that when they give, like when pregnant women give birth, they are like, even they had like very painful labor and stuff like that. By the time they see the child, everything
I guess
just-
we'll find out.
I mean, I don't know. That's like head, and I hope it's true though. But that's like head.
I have a curveball to throw in there though, because as you were speaking, I remembered her point about enjoying the process. And then when you said, what if it has to be a point where you say, even if I don't get where I'm going, and I know this is very dark.
It's dark.
It's very dark.
Yeah.
Even if I don't get where I'm going, what if I don't get where I'm going? Is this still worth it? That goes to your point of, do I like the process, or like the path I've chosen enough that even on the path, I am okay.
If I perish, I perish.
If I perish, I perish, but this is where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Is that I get there or I die trying?
Yeah.
I think that's where even the process itself has to be part of what you bargained for. Because if you act like this is just something I need to get over and get done with, if you don't die when you get there, there's another journey you're going to begin.
Exactly.
So I know it sounds dark, but
I think
like,
you can link it to something he said. He said something about like you have to know the reason why he started. So
Sorry,
just like
yeah.
Jesus, when Jesus was going like on the cross, your why has to be strong, like so strong that it can't
To
even
be
like
convincing.
move you.
Could
all
it
the
be, could it be
pain.
happy, sad, like in that moment? Like
if
just,
sometimes
It can even be depressing. It can be depressing.
But then you have joy. You know, we have joy.
Yeah.
Our joy
Right.
is not about happiness or sadness.
Yeah, it's just there. So you think about it like, okay, so for example, personal example, I was going through something, and at that point I was really sad about it, but at the same time it's like there's just this joy, and it got to the point where I was thinking about it and I was laughing, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. But I was laughing because it's just that joy that was making me laugh, because I was like, okay, God knows that I'm going through this thing, so he's aware.
Yeah.
So last I'll be okay. Okay, so have you ever been in a situation where you're going through a process and you really, really want to give up? Like, what made you continue? I know that we just mentioned the fact that you know your why, but sometimes you might know your why. But like personally, have you ever been in that situation where you're going through the process and you're like, you know what, or did you even give up when you were in the process?
I think we've all given up at some point.
Yeah,
I've given up.
I gave up and I didn't give up. Like, so I was in a position where I wanted to leave a place because I felt like it was not serving me mentally. I wasn't coping the way I wanted to cope. And it's one of those things where if I had left, nobody would blame me for leaving. But I just really felt that I'm here for a reason. Like, I need to be here. And what really helped to do, I had support from, I used to call my dad a lot. Like, I don't know what's going on. I can't do this anymore. I can't. And then I would pray. I had friends who would pray with me, like having panic attacks. And I just believed that there was a plan because, and if there was no plan, one day I'll have a sign and it's time to leave, right? But then how I even left was, someone just called me up and said, oh, there's this thing I want you to do, something else. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. I wasn't even sure, but I was like, sure, I'll try that out. And
was it in line with your bigger picture?
Yeah, so where I was in line with but I knew that I couldn't thrive in that environment.
No, what I'm saying is what the person was calling you to do wasn't exactly.
Yeah,
so it's easier for you to decide.
But guess what? In the time when I was waiting, when I didn't have that thing, I wanted to quit so many times. The only reason why I stayed was because I had people around me just encouraging me to stay. So there's need for support. Like there's prayer, people to pray with you, but also people to encourage you and to ask you, why did you come here in the first place? You would know when it's time. You need a support system around you when you're going through your process. You need mentors, you need coaches, you need to study,
friends,
you need friends, you need to pray. You need a support system because you can't go through your process. Nobody can go through their process alone. Even Joseph, to come out of that prison, even people that forgot
he needed the butlers in the prison.
I think I should say this, like for whoever's watching. I think if you journal and you receive the word from God, maybe a word of prophecy or a particular scripture, it's easy to go back to and say, "Oh, this
is my why.
This is what I'm working with. This is my why. This is my map."
This is my.
It's always helpful because now you have an anchor, so you have something to go back to when times are hard. You're like, "Okay, God said this. Okay, this is what I'm sticking to." It helps a lot.
Okay, so here's what I wanted to say, right? But before I say it, or should I say it before we go for the break? Okay, let me ask it, and then we go for the break.
Okay.
So, how long should this process last for? Right. We'll be right back, guys.
But then please come out. Okay, I'm sorry. Just come out already.
Alright, welcome back, guys, and this is still the Light Lounge, and we're still here chilling, having an amazing conversation about the process, about blow, about arrival, making it in life, whatever term you want to use. But just before we took that break, I asked a question: how long should the process last for? And I have two persons
Not
in
too
mind. Of course, not too long, but not too long is relative. So here's why. I have two persons in mind: Jesus Christ and Abraham. Jesus, for example. So when I think about his story, it's overwhelming because he was 30 years when he started his ministry, and the ministry only lasted for 3 years. So he was preparing all of these years just for something that would last for 3 years. But here's the good news: the fact that even after that 3 years, the ministry that lasted for 3 years, it's over how many thousands and millions of years, he's still relevant till now. So because of how much work he puts in that period, that's why we can enjoy it till even tell it to our children, children. Do you get what I mean? So I feel like the process should not be so. If the process is so long, it's because of the weight of the glory.
Is that true all the time?
Is that the same
Well,
for?
at the same time, you said something
Is it
about
all the time?
character.
Yeah.
So I think personally, I think that the process shouldn't be too long.
Yeah.
But I also feel like God gives you something that you can handle. So
Right.
if God has said, "Oh, it's going to be 10 years," probably you have the energy for that.
Yeah.
For me, I don't have it. So I'm thinking, like, God, please just cut it short so that it's not too long. And I also feel like your attitude during the process makes the process easier for you. For example, Job. I think Job, I don't know for how many years it was, but I think his attitude during that process made it easier, and he was able to come back from that. Because some people actually don't come back from their process.
Yeah.
And it's very, very sad for some people.
Let's look at some people who missed it with the process, just based off what you just said. I think the children of Israel, like you said, their attitude, they had no reason to spend 40 years in the wilderness.
Yeah.
But they had a
Exactly.
bad attitude.
That's a good one, actually.
And they could not take that to the promised land, so you're gonna stay here.
So
And
they had
fix it.
For 40 years,
Fix your
40 days,
attitude.
that's a
And it was
lot.
because of them, can you imagine?
Yeah, and it was because of them Moses couldn't see. I think Moses should be mad at them.
I'm
actually.
telling you,
Because-
But
like,
it's
Bro.
the mad at them now that caused him not to see.
Right. Another person would be Abraham, right, with the whole Isaac and Ishmael story, right? So Abraham had a promise. He knew that it was going to take a while. And I feel like he's one guy who trusted God so much. I mean, went on a journey without even knowing where you're headed. That's like a big deal.
Yeah.
Moved from Lagos to California and not knowing, do you get what you're going there to do, not knowing anybody literally. And then he took the bold step. So you're knowing, okay, this thing would happen. But somehow, and there's a lot of lesson to learn in his story. Because sometimes even the people close to you might be the ones who would want to, and they're not doing it from a bad place, but they might just make you miss your focus.
Yeah.
Right.
But they share their wisdom, what they're thinking with you. So they don't have what you have. They don't have the vision you have.
Yeah.
They didn't
Vision,
communicate
that's
with
the
God.
word.
They didn't journal it in
You're
the
the
book.
one who has
They're
it.
just giving you great advice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like as your
Actually
parents,
good advice.
as
Exactly.
your
So Sarah
spouse,
came-
as your
Exactly.
But they don't know what you know.
Yeah.
And You need to decide.
So
I think it's more about transformation than making heaven. Making heaven is not bad, and I'm not against that. But I think we shouldn't have like a reward system in our heads, because people want to do good because they want to make heaven. They don't want to go to hell. So I think it should be like you were going through the process because you know that it's building a character of Christ in you. Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to say about the what if. What if you don't make $1 million? What if you don't get that? What if you don't get married? What if you don't get all these things that you want for yourself here? And what if that's not what it is about? Right? So it's more about are you building character?
Yeah.
Are you building skills that are bettering yourself and people around you? Like, what are you doing? What is your process doing for you beyond the singular thing of the reward at the end? And that transformation could be the reward at the end, because that's really what
could be.
That's what God is interested in you and who you've become, and that character you have of Christ. That will now be that. Okay, now you can come serve because you fit in here.
The gates are open.
Now, let's talk about because a lot of young people are probably going to see this content, and I'm in the entertainment industry, so I think I can relate to this. At some point in my life, I've even also tried to look the past, right? Just maybe it can come quicker.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Because some people will tell you, you want to charge 1 million, you're not looking like $1 million bucks, but you cannot look like if I give you the money, you won't run away.
As long as what's inside is fitting the packaging,
it would be good. It's a question of is there anything wrong in faking it till you make it? It's a very popular term, but as Christians, right? Because it's a thin line. It could interpret it to be faith. Faith.
It depends on what you're faking. What are you faking?
Exactly. What are you faking?
Are you faking skills that you don't have?
Maybe
are you faking a
lifestyle
you don't have?
Trying to look like you are it when you know
but
you're still in the process.
Something about. So I feel like, especially if you're faking a lifestyle, it says something about like we shouldn't compare ourselves with one another. So I feel if you're faking a lifestyle, that's literally you comparing yourself with one another, because if I'm not looking at you, maybe there's a particular type of car that I would drive that would look really good. Yes, there will be no standard. So I will just live my life thinking this is just how you live life and this is just how you enjoy life.
It's one thing to have only one pair of trousers and a shirt, but make sure it's always neat. And make sure it's always looking ironed, meaning you're trying to dress like the people you want to become when you can afford it. You're packaging with what you have and you're projecting what you have in a way that it is like it can be more. I think that can work. Like whatever you have,
as long as you're not
speak with confidence. Is why we want
deceiving others.
I think
so
deceit is
you know what you know and you know what you don't know, and you are willing to learn. That's different. But packaging yourself is different from, and maybe they're the same. But what I'm trying to say is is one thing for you to project what you have in the best way and put your best foot forward. And then there's another thing for you to lie. And then we like what we see outside, and then we open and there's nothing.
I think I'll go with you on that one. Honesty is key. Like who are you fooling? If you know you're not, you're being honest about who you are, what you're doing, even if you're doing it for a reason, because there's something called perceived reality, especially in this film industry and showbiz. You want to look a certain way, but if you're honest about it and it's not out of pretense, I think it's okay.
Paint your car, make it look nice. Change your tires if you have the money to change your tires, but then don't rent a car.
Don't skip.
Don't skip
the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So are there times when you're actually investing time in the wrong process, or in a process that is headed nowhere?
I don't think any process is headed nowhere, because
Okay, so let me rephrase, because I agree with you.
What you're saying is even worse than what you're saying. It means you're headed to the wrong place. It's not nowhere.
When she said this, I remember that I also mentioned that if it's not a thing, it will lead to the thing that will lead to the thing. So but what I'm saying in essence is this is not the will of God.
So it could lead to, that's what she's saying, is that it's not headed nowhere, but it can lead to the.
So I feel like it's just a longer route. Like maybe for
example,
you want to go to Aja, and then instead of going on like the Lekki Express, you start entering into phase 1 and
just to see what's happening there.
Just going.
That's not
like just a longer route.
I believe that sometimes you might think you're investing wrongly into something, and God might find a way to redeem time for you in such a way that what you've invested time in can actually link to where God is taking you to. So I believe that no time is actually wasted. No process is lost, really.
But what if you don't come back to God? What if you stay on your own way.
Yeah, that's very different.
I don't think that we're able to craft a way away from God.
He will always bring you back.
God will always
right where
find
he
you.
wants
Yeah. So I believe that you can't really step away from the grand purpose of God's will, so to say.
However,
Even if you don't run, God
But
finds
what
a way.
if you just don't come back? Like,
I also
what
say,
if-
I was going to say, so, when you step away sometimes, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the world, even if you're in God's will, but the thing is, in seeing for yourself, and I know that even when you're staying where God put you, things can still happen. But when you sometimes stay away from where God has put you, you experience things and you see things that show you how deep and dark the world is, and that trauma, it would build you. God can redeem you from it, but it's, from my experience, sometimes it's unnecessary.
Maybe God wants you to see it.
It's unnecessary because you knew and you could, and He would save you. He would bring you back. He would take you. He would, no matter how and where you are, He would take you and help you heal. God will heal you. He's a healer. He'll heal your mind.
Yeah.
This is one of the richest conversations I've had with like minds and young people. And just like you said, like the prodigal son, I feel like you need to understand that it doesn't matter how far you've gone, God is willing to have you back. And it's so beautiful to know that when He's restoring you, He doesn't put you just anywhere. He puts you right where you should have been if you didn't even go off track. So when you know who you are, it's easy for you to know what you ought to do, to know your use, literally. And then how best can you know who you are if you do not have a relationship with God, if you do not have a relationship with Jesus? So the aim of all of this conversation is to let you know that, look, there's a sweeter life when you know God. There's an easier life when you know God. There's a shorter way to do this thing where process doesn't seem like process. Process seems like you're having fun.
Journey.
So if you're willing to give your life to Christ, this is an opportunity for you. There are messages on the screen, maybe numbers and emails. You can reach out to us. But you could also just close your eyes and say a word of prayer, because Jesus loves you. He's been waiting right beside you where you are, literally. Just say a word of prayer. Say, Lord, I love you, and I just want to know you, and I just want you in my life. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be you going on the mountain to make those prayers or fasting for 100 days. Just literally whatever you can do right now, just do it, and you'll be amazed at how He's going to reach out to you, because He's been waiting. God is always willing to have you. He's always willing to hold you by the hands, by His nail-pierced hands, to receive you back and to hold you through the journey. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you
so
for
much.
watching. Don't
Like,
forget
subscribe,
to like, comment,
comment,
share with your friends. Everything.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everyone.